Hey everyone, welcome back to this. I never start it with welcome back to this channel. I don't know why I just said that. But hello everyone, hope you're all having a lovely day. That's how I usually start it out. We are back with Isa and Jack and Christian combos and fun stuff. And today we are going to be talking about, or we're going to be continuing our discuss. Our brains are both not here today, sorry. But today we're going to be continuing our discussion about mental health. And today specifically, we're going to be talking about this whole idea of the head and the heart, because last week, Issa brought up a really good point of the whole, head versus heart debate. And now that song is stuck in my head, Ava Max, My Head, My Heart. It's a great song. If you haven't listened to it, you should. But today we're going to be talking about that and this whole idea of like the head versus the heart and feelings and all that kind of stuff. So, Issa, do you do you want to start off with just going just a little overview of what you found in the verse in Jeremiah? And I'm forgetting which verse specifically it was.
79. It's like the only
17:9.
verse that anyone ever knows from Jeremiah, aside from 29:11,
I was just going to say that one.
which is also often taken out of context. Spoiler alert: my entire thought is that it's taken out of context. um, I don't remember how I found it or like what drove me to go. I don't know, further into the verse, but it's a verse that bothered me and I think usually bothers other people. And my further looking into it ended up solving a lot of my botheredness. Like it was one of those things where, oh my God, I hate this verse. Like, what? This is really convicting and it makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to look into it. And it actually works. And it makes you less uncomfortable when you figure out the actual meaning of it. And actually, you know what I think I do remember? I think it was some sort of me hearing, I don't remember where I heard it or like who from, but it was some sort of, I heard at one point that the Hebrew speakers of the Old Testament, aka people who were alive in Jeremiah's time, did not have a word for the brain, as in like they did not have a word for the organ that we think of as the brain, the gray
Mhm.
matter, the pink floppy thingy that's up in this. I have a really like thin head, so I joke about having small brain sometimes, but that like that brain,
Mhm.
um, which like if you've never heard like well you've heard but if you've never spoken about like sometimes it's funny like in a peculiar way to hear that like we talk about the heart as though like like oh my God, my heart is broken, like I feel like my emotions, they come from my heart, like I love my child with all my heart, like we talk about it like the thing in our chest. The thing only pumps blood. Like that, the heart is controlled by your brain. It's like we talk about the heart like it's the center of your emotions, the center of everything. It's really all the brain. And I think we all kind of know that, but like we don't really, I don't know. Sometimes it's like, do we? Because we never really talk about it that way. But yeah,
Mhm.
our emotions come from our brain. Most people know that at this point too. I think it's the, I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be really, really embarrassed in a few months if I get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's either the amygdala or something else that commands emotions. Am I right? Do you know
I
that?
want to say the um oh, I can't. I was gonna. Oh wait, let me look it up really quick. I wanted to say the. I think it is the amygdala. I just don't want to be like, yeah, it's definitely that, and then have myself be wrong.
It's, oh, you know why
Amygdala
the
function.
amygdala is in my head? It's because it is the memory.
Fight or flight. No,
Oh, no,
amygdala's
no, no, I was right. Okay, good.
okay.
It was primary role. This is what Wikipedia says. So it's not exactly like I'm going to um, all my peer-reviewed journals, but processing of memory, decision-making, and emotional responses. So basically, the thing that I'm best at, the thing that I'm worst at, and the thing that I get the most confused about. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I have a like weirdly good memory, but yes, the brain. So I found that Western thought, modern Western thought, aka just nowadays, like mm, America, all that, blah blah blah. I'm speaking from an American standpoint, but you could probably say much the same about like the UK, blah blah blah. Western thought, you know what Western thought is? That dictates the heart to be the center of emotions. It dictates the
Mhm.
heart as being what like runs the body. At least that's what I feel like I grew up on. When in reality, we kind of all know it. We just don't really. speak or like think that way,
Yeah.
that the brain runs everything. It runs the heart. It runs the organ of the brain runs the heart. Um, and it also processes emotions, even though we speak about the emotions being felt in the heart. Um, but surprisingly enough, the Hebrews, when speaking, that sounds really weird. The Hebrews, the Israelites, the Hebrew speakers. It's like completely okay to say, but for some reason it feels weird to me. The Hebrew speakers in Jeremiah's time, and basically just in Old Testament times, did not have a word for the brain. They knew it was there, I think. I just don't think they had really much. They weren't medically advanced. They
Mm.
obviously not in the same way as us.
Psychology is a fairly, I don't want to say a fairly new science, but it's progressed a lot
Yeah.
recently.
Well, and also, but just
She's
medical
frozen.
study in general, like the study of the human body,
Yeah.
it really didn't take off until, I mean, I don't really think it took off until the Renaissance, and even then, it kind of wasn't really that good. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can't really, you couldn't really do much in the way of medical study at all until technology came around,
Yeah.
and that's fine. It's just that in the ancient times, they thought a lot more was okay to do, and they had a lot more like they just but it's easy to have grace for it because we understand that
Mhm.
technology wasn't around, so they could only do so much.
Yeah, of
um
course.
like, I mean, and you can even go down to small things like leeches didn't ever really kill anybody, but like, oh my god, like we don't do that anymore.
That
So
still just like that idea just horrifies me. Thinking of like putting a leech on like a, nope, nope.
yeah, well, and also like things like treatment of like, I mean, well, I almost want to rescind what I just said about technology because with technology also came things like the electric chair. I don't know.
Well, there's
But
been, there's pros and cons of both, you know?
yes, that's true. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I'm trying to like sum it up is that like our thought on one hand, our like Western thought is kind of funny and ironic because like we have this weird thing of like, oh, the heart runs everything. But we also kind of know like, no, it doesn't. No, it literally doesn't. The brain does.
Hmm.
But then in ancient Hebrew speaker thought, or well, I guess I could say Jewish tradition,
Hmm.
Jewish thought and religion was we don't have a word for the brain. We know it's there, but we have to speak kind of on I guess what the revelation of what God has kind of brought and tradition. I say tradition in the sense of like this is what we've believed and what we've done for like years and years and
Hmm.
years and years. I can't speak on it as much as a Jewish historian could. I haven't done my seminary research because I haven't gone to seminary. So, but something really ironic that I realized was that actually part of why we speak about the heart as though it's the center of the body is because we actually draw on things in getting that kind of speaking and that thinking. We actually draw on things like ancient Jewish thought
Hmm.
because they also thought in a way that the heart, well, and also Greek. I guess I should probably say that it comes more from Greek because Western thought was much more heavily influenced by like Greek thinkers than it was by ancient Jewish
Greece,
thinkers.
yeah.
But they also drew on cultures around them. Um, and we speak about the heart as though it's like the seat, I guess you could say the seat of passions. And so we don't just speak about the heart as like it burns with, we say like it burns with anger too. Like we don't only talk about it with like I love my son with all of my heart.
Hmm.
And like
Kind of the heart almost being a like I don't want to say a like almost like a substitution for the brain almost. Like it's both almost like the heart is I think you said kind of the center of everything in our being, if that made
yeah, well
sense.
we have a, that's what I'm saying about the Hebrew speakers. We don't we have that distinction now because we talk
Hmm.
about the brain like it's the seat of thinking and
Yeah,
our heart is the
thoughts.
seat of emotions. But we
Yeah,
speak about our heart the way that we speak about our heart because we draw on years and years and years of people also speaking about it like that.
exactly.
And so we get that technically from mostly from the Greeks, in the sense that like I burned with anger, in my heart, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They would also talk about it, with like, I felt joy in my heart, like I love my
Hmm.
family with all my heart.
Almost like the
You know,
heart more for emotion and the brain more for thought and thinking.
that's us today.
Yeah.
That's us today, yeah, and it started there too, I think. But, like, yeah, and so, I'm just simply saying that, like, we think of that, but part of why we speak about the heart that we do speak about it does come from old thought. It's just that the old thought kind of all brought it in together, and it's cool because there are some other fun words that go along with it, and, like, I look at the Greek like, the New Testament Greek thinking as different than the Old Testament Hebrew thinking because truly it's just 2 different cultures.
Hmm.
But, like, because the Greeks had more of a developed vocabulary on like emotions,
Hmm.
and so they had the word for they had a word for heart, and it was just cardia, and that's actually a name in my family. We spell it with a C, not a K, but
Wow.
it's a name in my family. And it means just heart, really, and it doesn't really refer to much else, I think. And I think it actually does refer mostly to the organ and less of a poetic
Mm.
meaning, and mostly
Well,
just
when
to
you
the
think of like, it
organ.
makes me think. The root almost sounds like cardio. Like you think of cardio
Well, that's where
exercises.
cardio comes from.
Yeah, yeah,
And that,
exactly.
yeah, exactly. And so they spoke mostly about they use that mostly for just the heart, as far as I'm concerned, because they had a very developed vocabulary for
Hmm.
emotional responses. And I'm like trying to think. Oh, well, but like phobos was the word for fear, was the root for fear, and so they had stuff like that.
Phobos, like
And
phobia. Mhm.
obviously like the Hebrews did too, but Greek really goes into it. Like they have multiple words for, it gets nuanced and
Mhm.
stuff in this in a way that Hebrew doesn't always do, or in a totally different way. So and like I said, we're more accustomed to the Greek way of thinking than we are to Hebrew because it's more recent and our
Mhm.
culture also draws on it. But back even further, Hebrew has a lot of crazy stuff. Like they have the word nefesh, which refers to soul, which Greeks does too. It's like pneuma, I think, but um, Hebrew's word is like crazy poetic because it refers to like air and like breath, and it would go into like
Mhm.
the breath of God and everything too. But they have these words for well, they have a word, I believe. I don't know if there's any more than just this one for the heart, and it's I believe it's just the root on its own is lev, and it's kind of weird because V and B is like interchangeable, and I never know how to pronounce it, but it's LEV, kind of pronounced like lev,
Mhm.
and it just means heart, and it's the word. Do you want me to go into Jeremiah 17:9, or do you want to
Yeah,
introduce
well,
it?
I was just gonna say, it almost makes me think of. I was gonna kind of like lead into that with, this whole idea of like, the heart and the head almost being two separate things. We do that in today. In today, like like I said before, we use the heart for emotions and the
Just
head
today, not
for
yesterday or tomorrow, just today.
just today. The heart we describe for emotions, the head we use for thoughts and stuff. And I feel like that's one of those things where people, talk about you can't trust, when we talk about you can't trust your feelings or you can't trust stuff like that, with mental illness specifically, people will kind of attribute that to the brain as well. And they'll be like, oh, sometimes unfortunately people think that mental illness isn't real, mental health isn't a thing. And they're like, oh, well, it's all just in your head. Um,
Yeah.
and yes and no, like yes in the sense that it is in your head, no in the sense that it's not like just it's not fake, it's not your like it's a real thing, it's a tangible thing. It kind of was tying into what I was saying with I say so many times on this channel, the brain is an organ, and just like any other organ in the body, it can malfunction. And so therefore when there is a malfunction, there's going to be a negative reaction. And so kind of tying into that with Issa, what you were going to say about specifically Jeremiah 17:9, is that the right
Mhm.
one?
Yeah, get it right.
It is, that is right.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Where
I
is
didn't want to be like numbers that aren't even in there,
I
so
actually know it's I don't know, I was gonna make something funny up and it just got in my head.
what's a Bible? What is that? Is that like I
What's a what?
was kidding saying what's a Bible?
Oh, what? I thought we
What
were
is
in
it?
the
Is
I
it a
thought we were
series?
in
No.
Is it a series? Oh my god, who wrote that? Who wrote that? Um No,
Sorry, I apologize for us just being like kind of gone today. It's been busy. We've been busy.
I know I said last time Issa was okay. Issa's like only a little bit okay.
Yeah, not so much. We're both in
I
the
might have
process of,
exaggerated a little bit.
yeah.
It's fine.
We're
It's
both on the
fine.
job hunt
I'm sorry.
again because now that we're going back to school, we literally had to both leave our jobs. So we're both like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks in a few days, and she just put in her 2 weeks. So we're both
Like
like,
it wasn't even 2 weeks. I was like, I'm not going back.
I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
But no, so we're both kind of in a state where we're like, yay, we're leaving, but now we have to find a new job, and we've just been going nuts.
Yeah.
So sorry, quick little we digress, but
We
sorry,
did.
going into Jeremiah 17:9.
Screaming. Okay. Actually I'm not gonna do that. I was gonna switch my Wi-Fi
She's not gonna
server.
do that.
And then I was like, I am on Zoom. Um, okay,
You can't like
17:9.
minimize screen during a Zoom recording.
Yeah. Okay, so because I'm not a fool, I'm going to give you that was really daring to say. I'm sorry.
No, I was like,
I'm going to give you context. That was not supposed to be a roast to anyone who forgets to use context. It's just that things are usually taken out of out of
at
context.
me, why don't you? No, I'm kidding.
Things are usually taken out of context
Yeah.
when there's a lack of context.
Okay.
So the passage is called "The Sin of Judah." Wow, in my English Standard Version. And I'm back on that website that I really gassed up one of the last times I was here, called Blue Letter Bible. It's like you literally
Oh
can
yeah.
learn so much, and you don't have to be a Bible scholar.
I also need to send you
so-
something. Oh, sorry, because
Oh, no.
Jordan from Revivals for Christ, he sent me this like link to get this Hebrew and Greek and English combination study Bible, and I literally was like, that has Issa's name written all over it as mine, so I need to send you that link. Sorry,
It's probably like literally 7,000 pages, but like
not
yeah.
sponsored.
Not sponsored, but go check out Revival for Christ channel. I'll do it. Okay. Context: the sin of Judah. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's not super long, but it would take some time. So basically, it is Jeremiah's writing it. Obviously, he is. Now I'm questioning myself because there's quotes, and so I'm nervous that he's quoting something. Well, he might be quoting something, but if he's quoting something, I can be pretty confident that he's quoting he's either quoting like Moses or like an earlier prophecy. So that's usually how it goes in the Old Testament, at least. That's what I'm guessing. But if he's not, if he's just speaking out loud, he's basically convicting Judah of its sin. He's convicting the Israelites of their sin recently, and quoting what God said, verse 5 up until verse 9. He's quoting what the Lord has said. So there's other things like, blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is in the Lord, which is a pretty well-known verse. I should take that back from earlier. People do quote that a lot. So it's funny. It's like it goes in between. He's like, cursed is a man who trusts a man. He's like a shrub in the desert, blah, blah, blah. But blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord. He's like a tree planted by water. So there's like a duality there. That happens a lot in poetry. And then it's almost like a non sequitur when you look at that. That sounds like a proverb almost. I wonder if he's quoting a proverb. But that sounds like a proverb. And then it almost feels like a non sequitur when he comes in with this: the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Which perhaps does draw on verse 5, which is like, oh, curse is the man who trusts in man. And I guess you can kind of wonder, well, maybe curse is the man who trusts in man because he should know that the heart is deceitful above all things. Therefore, verse 7, he should trust in the Lord instead, because then he will be blessed and led in a path. Proverbs 3, 5, 6. But anyway, in verse 9, it says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? That's the ESV translation. It's pretty similar in all the other ones. But either way, what is the same across all translations is the Hebrew version, because there's only one Hebrew version. And the order is a little bit, I'm looking at the other words now. So it's always useful to like look at the other words. It's like, okay, what's the Hebrew? What is the meaning, the true meaning of this word, akob, which is deceitful. LOL if I butchered that. Sorry, I'm still working on my Hebrew pronunciation. But the heart is the one that I mentioned, leb. And I'm opening that page now. And so I'll literally read you I wish I could well, I could share my screen, but I feel like I'm too nervous to do that. So the outline of biblical usage that I have up here is the inner man, the mind, the will, the heart, and the
Mhm.
understanding. And so I don't necessarily know if this usage is organized the way that it's like for a reason, but notice that it puts mind two places before it puts heart. It literally first is used as inner man. So like that makes me think of like when I refer to like me, it's like my what does Freud call that? Or not Freud, id? What is that? It's like me, like my internal setting. I don't know. But then it refers to the mind. What? It refers to the will, which I guess you can kind of reword as like desires. I don't know. And then the heart, and then the understanding. So to me, I look this up, and it almost comes across as more of what I would describe now as like a modern day English speaker as my head, as my
Mhm.
mind. Um, but it is the KJV at least, because it only gives me for the KJV. It just translates the word as heart by far more than anything else. But it translates it as heart 508 times. So I'm going to stop telling you the nerdy stuff. But that's why I look at the translation count like that, but then I also look at the outline of biblical usage because it translates it as heart 508 times. But the word isn't always just the word because you have to look at the word in context with everything else that's being said. I'm trying to think of like a modern day English equivalent that does that. Um, but like it's translated as heart, but it's actually used also as like the soul. It's used as the mind slash knowledge, thinking, reflection,
Mhm.
memory. It's used as the conscience. It's used as the seat of appetites, but it's also used as the seat of emotions and passions, like we kind of think of the heart nowadays. Um, and there are other forms of the word too. There's levav, which is kind of translated the exact same way. So yes, with that like knowledge of that's like the most basic possible knowledge you can get of what that word means when you kind of look at the fact, okay, the heart is deceitful above all things, who can understand it? You can kind of think about like, well, anyone who spoke Hebrew and would have been reading these words also understood this word to refer to why, okay, like my decision making also
Mhm.
comes from this word. Like my logical, rational thought also comes from this word, right? Like nowadays, we're like, oh, don't trust your emotions, think rationally. And when you make a decision about something and you throw your emotions out, you're still using the same thing, right?
Mhm.
You still process your emotions in your brain. And nowadays we have like, we know why we think the way that we think and we can understand how the brain works. But if you would say that to a Hebrew speaking Jew from Jeremiah's time, perhaps you'd be received weirder because that word is so all encompassing. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? I don't get it. Like,
Mhm.
you're telling me to what? Like, I feel like that's how I would feel. Is that like it's not just my emotions are
Mhm.
desperately sick.
It's almost
My
like a
ability
word
to
with
reason.
multiple. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go.
Well, it is a word with multiple meanings.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to tell me that my emotions are desperately sick and then tell me to think rationally, I would have to respond with, well, my my rational thinking ability is also desperately sick, considering Jeremiah told me that, my inner man, that's technically the first thing that my inner man is desperately sick. It
Mm.
just really draws on, like you see elsewhere in the Old Testament, you see elsewhere in the Bible. I mean, man is fallen, Romans 3, Genesis 3, like we literally are by nature fallen. So if we are by nature fallen, like, I mean, nature, we're just like we're fallen. And so I would then go to think that, if the word that refers to my emotions is telling me that my emotions are fallen, then but it also refers to things like what I think of my head today, right? My will,
Mhm.
my mind, those are fallen too. So I always feel funny when people are like, Jeremiah 17:9, like, don't listen to your emotions, think with your head. I'm like, I want you to realize that Jeremiah was using a word that referred to all of it.
Everything. Yeah.
Because Yes, and like, cause and who could in their right mind look anyone in the eyes and say that their reasoning is perfect and that their decision making is perfect? Like, as though we've never made, yeah, like as though,
I
when
don't
in
make
doubt, resort
mistakes,
to your
like
rationality because yeah, like when in doubt, resort to your head and your rationality because you'll never get it wrong. Like,
yeah, no,
no, you'll
never.
get it wrong.
Yeah, many times.
Exactly. And so it's like people take that verse and run with it. And it's caused me a lot of grief. It's caused, I think part of the reason why I guilt myself for so much is because of what I've let that verse turn into in my head. I feel like I sound like I'm blaming people, but it's because that verse has been taught to me over and over and over by so many, 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 many people like that. And I
Mhm.
was like, I looked that up and I was like, what? Y'all, like, where? And I'm like reluctant to say this because like I'm just a girl who has not gone to seminary and I don't have a knowledge of Hebrew. Ooh, look at that girl. I'm not like I don't have a deep knowledge. I am sort of like, don't look at me like I'm not a pastor. Like I can't sit here and tell pastors that they've got it wrong. But well, if they're a good pastor, they'll say that I don't always get it right. But at the same time, I feel funny pointing some things like this out because like I said, I'm just a girl who's never gone to seminary, don't have that education. I can only read what I can read in like kind of layman's terms with my music education degree. Um, and hope that no pastor finds this and roasts me for how
Mhm.
wrong I am. So,
That's a very, I will say, it's like, but that also I think is a lot of humility too, partially humility. Because I mean, like, not a lot of people are willing to say that, like, be like, oh, but I like, could be wrong, which I don't think. I mean, personally, I'm just saying I don't think you are, like, but I think it's a very humble to say that. Plus, I think it also might be the we're both Italian. If you didn't know that, I know it's a very Italian thing to be like give a whole spiel about why you're right, and then at the very end to like as a disclaimer be like, but what do I know? Like,
is it really?
yeah, apparently.
That's funny.
Um,
My family just, well, there are some people in my family who don't tack that little end part on. So I'm kidding.
sorry. But
All of us.
what was I saying? But no, I think you bring up a really good point because it's kind of like with the whole idea of like, the head and the heart, my head and my heart. I'm sorry, that song is gonna be stuck in my head for forever now. But that whole idea, all of them being kind of interconnected and being the same thing, it kind of reminds me of, it really makes you think about when people are like, oh, like, don't listen to your like, emotions, just think rationally. Or like, with mental illness specifically being like, it's all just in your head, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, my brain is also falling, like it's not, I
Exactly.
can't, like, if we're going to expect the rest of our body, like, yeah, we can get sick with like diseases and viruses, we can like, break bones and have things like the flu and literally covid, then why are we excusing everything that goes on in our brains, that one organ, expecting that one to be like perfect?
Yeah, right. Well, or we
Can't
speak
make
about it.
any, you know
We like on one hand we're like, oh, I'm not perfect. Like I'm. Then on the other hand, it's like we speak in this way that like resort to rationality because you'll never get it wrong.
yeah, I
It's
know,
like it's almost like it's like in the
even
human
our
condition to
rationale
be
is messed
ironic.
up.
Yeah, it's like in the human condition to be hypocritical about that because one side of us is like your rationality is perfect, but then the other side of us is like no, it's not. And
We're
so I just it
terrible.
causes me to ask the question of like, okay, well then why do we like constantly go back and forth? Why do we act and speak like it is? It's time
Hmm.
to stop. I'm trying to think of like because I know there's one in there, but I'm not thinking about. I'm trying to think of like another passage where I feel like it's either like in one of Peter's epistles or like Jesus said it or something where he does go into our like thought, like our thinking, our thought process, our rationality is fallen. Like I feel like there is a passage that actually like specifically details that. I just can't think of it right
That'll
now.
be in next video when we find it.
If you can think of it, show us you're smart. Put it in the comments. I mean, do it because then I can then I can revisit it.
Yeah.
So,
No, absolutely. I think that brought up a lot of good points, and we will definitely consider. This is why we only film once a
nice.
week, and why my videos are extremely edited because this is what like if I tried to just film every video without it being edited, like this is what you would get. You get a whole lot of me being like, oh crap, what was I gonna say?
You said once a week, isn't it? Like I haven't been on since like last
I
month.
think we do like every other week. It's turned into every other week on
It
Thursday.
doesn't need to have a schedule.
No, yeah, we just do it when we want, but usually it's on
Schedules
Thursday.
are silly.
But yeah, no, we will definitely be continuing this conversation in the next video. And this specifically with the whole idea of the head and the heart. I think there's definitely more to talk about, and so we'll probably, excuse me, sorry, I had to burp. Next video, we will definitely be going into it in more detail, and we will continue this discussion on mental health. This will be, like I said, this topic as a whole, like I said, it's kind of like an umbrella term, almost like that word that is used for the head and the heart. It's an umbrella term, and there's multiple kind of parts that are with it. But yeah, no, mental health, mental illness, we will definitely be continuing to talk about that. And then this topic specifically with the head and the heart, I think we'll finish next week, or at least do our best to, in specific regards to Jeremiah and, the brain being an organ that can malfunction just like any other one. So Isa, do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts are eat your greens, study your Hebrew.
Your greens, study your Hebrew and Greek.
Look up https://www.blb.org. I mean blueletterbible.org. Pick your favorite verse. Look at the Greek or Hebrew. It's really cool. I don't know, maybe I'm just a big fat nerd and it's
no,
like,
I think that's really cool too.
but do it. It's cool. It really like enlightened me. Yeah. So my research on love that I like sort of got into. LOL, we like didn't even go into that. Like there's so much more.
I know there's so much more that we need to. We're kind of just like we're playing this by ear. I'm so sorry. We're clearly not professionals at all. We just do this because it's fun and fun to have fellowship and conversations about cool topics in the Bible.
Influencers.
We're fake influencers.
I'm an influencer. My code ISA 15 for 15% off the NIV Cultural Study Bible. Actually, genuinely not.
Yeah, we never have anything sponsored. Like I said, if we ever talk about like any sort of product or thing that we like, it's never ever.
That's what I would be an influencer for. No, but I was saying that whole research, well, it sprung out of a few things, but it got really big. It blew up and it got really in depth when I literally went to that website and like when I literally started looking into the language. So if you
language is such an interesting topic. I say it all the time, but it really is.
Yeah, if you have like a favorite verse or like a favorite like concept or whatever like stored or that's explored in the Bible, like some people really like the biblical concept of hope because it's so different from like ours today. There's like 3 different words for it. There's 2 that are mostly used in the Bible, but there's like a zillion different words for it in Hebrew speech or language. So like if you have something that's really interesting to you through the Bible like that is such a cool place to start, is to go onto the Blue Letter Bible because it has so many like study resources. It's like kind of gives me like Windows 95 vibes a little bit, but like go on there and like figure it out. And like the interlinear is so cool. It makes it all easy to figure out. Like if you're confused, it has like help. You can look it all up. It's just like is a really, really cool study tool, and it's all free. So I'm like gassing it up. Free, like,
it's for me.
But if you're interested in any of that stuff, it's just a really cool place to start and like
good resource, yeah.
Yeah, just like
yeah. Okay, well, we will see you guys all next time. I always feel so weird whenever I do these because I always think like I feel like on my normal channel I'm always just, or not my normal channel, whenever I do just a normal video I'm like, oh bye guys, and for these I always have to feel like next time on our like
next time on prime time hour. What do they call that? I don't even know.
Well, I love you guys all so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's video as much as we hope you do, because it was very weird and chaotic and unorganized, but that's kind of how we chaotic.
You haven't seen chaotic yet. You'll see chaotic when I'm at Jack's in a few days.
Yeah, Isa's coming over in a few weeks and I'm so excited. We're gonna do fun East Coast things.
Spoiler, sorry. But, darn it, you can cut that out. That would have been a fun surprise.
What?
Yeah. I was gonna say cut that out. It would have been more fun to surprise.
Oh sure, yeah. We'll vlog. We'll do a thing. But yeah, no, definitely see you guys soon. Sorry we've been so not all here. But we will probably be better in the next video. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if we don't lose our heads by then.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sorry, the brain is fallen.
the brain is falling. There you go. Love you
Yeah.
guys so much. Bye.